Elly-May Barnes, it's great to catch up with you here at Noise 11, and I am very excited about No Good, the new album. That's a rockin' good time.
Thank you for having me. I hope you like it. Oh, have you heard it?
I've heard it from beginning to end, and we'll talk about quite a few of the tracks as we pursue this interview here. 38 minutes, 12 songs, and then it's all over. It packs a punch.
I hope it packs a couple.
But getting those songs together, and we'll talk about this, like 10 originals and 2 people may have heard before, so we'll get to that. At 34 years of age, though, I guess in rock and roll years, this is quite an old age to be releasing a debut album. I guess I'd have to go back and have a look at Debbie Harry's age when Blondie formed, because I think she was in her late 20s, early 30s when Blondie started.
Hey, KJ, how old was Debbie Harry when Blondie started? Was she 31?
There you go.
There you go.
Well, now you've got something to compare yourself with.
Oh, I would never compare myself with Debbie Harry. I wouldn't dream of it.
Let's get on to talking about the album with a remarkable...
Yes, the album. No Good, my No Good album. It's out
No Good album. Yes, this album is no good.
This album is no good. I've always dreamt of having an album called No Good. And here it comes.
Here it comes. Well, you've got some remarkable collection of musicians on this record, including Richard Marx's drummer, Jackie Barnes.
Jackie Barnes of Richard Marx fame. Can you believe I wrangled him?
That is quite a coup.
And he's one of the most beautiful human beings on the planet, besides being my brother. I'm not that biased. And one of the most talented musicians of all time, not just drummers, but musicians, songwriters, like all over that record. I got some of the most beautiful players and musicians, as you might have heard and seen.
Yeah.
And I managed to wrangle the Clayton Dolly, my partner in cabaret, and obviously another one of the incredible dollies and best players in the country and world. That song, Keep Your Eyes to Yourself, I got on the record just because I needed everyone who played on that song to be on that record.
While you mentioned that particular song, I wanted to talk to you about that song, but as you brought it up, it's got a very 60s feel to it.
Davey Lane originally did a completely different version of that song. And it was really, really upbeat, kind of sort of more rocky, and when it's sort of, I really liked the kind of 60s feel of it, and I wanted to let Charlie Drayton take the lead on that.
There is very much a 60s influence in this record. Leaving Eden, the one that you did with Diesel, Mark Lizotte, Uncle Mark. That's
Uncle Mark. Yeah, I'm like, it's always, what do I call him? Uncle Mark Lizotte.
I think I might start calling you Uncle Mark every time I talk to him too. But that particular song has a very 60s feel to it as well. And when I say a 60s feel, I mean like the Spectre 60s New York sort of sound, not the UK pop of that era.
Well, yeah, no, I have a, as much as I love, a lot of the modern music that comes out now and respect a lot of the sounds that are coming out, I do have a longing for the nostalgia of that era, and Uncle Mark Lizotte, he knows that, like, about me, and he knows that I long for that sound, and he knows that I miss that era, and I love that whole Phil Spector kind of sound, and that whole 60s grandeur, and I think that there's a bit of nostalgia throughout the record. You'll find that I've tried to intertwine.
When I listen to the record from beginning to end, there are a lot of different eras in there, whether it be the 60s we're talking about here, whether it be the 80s when you're covering chiseled 20th century.
I think you'll find it's 21st century, Paul.
21st century. You've gone up a century.
Yeah, I think you'll find it's no longer 20th century, but 21st century. And it's so it's actually an update. If you will, for it's 40 years on and from 20th century now, so it's 21st century, and Don's given it an upgrade.
The title track, No Good, co-written with Davey. So tell me about that song and why that became the key track, the lead track, the title track of this record.
The self-deprecating part of me always would find it funny to have an album called No Good. So I always set out, or a track called No Good at least. So we set out at some point to write at least that track at some point. But also somebody did hurt my feelings, and they weren't particularly no good. They were sort of a friend of mine, and they were kind of going through a few things, and I'm not exactly a boundary kind of gal. But I figured it was an exercise for me in working on that. So rather than I did even speak to them about the song. That's how not mean I was about it. And they, rather than really cut them off and tell them they were no good and all this stuff, we sort of had a chat. I said, look, I'm going to pretend to write a mean song about you, but really I just kind of want you to feel better about yourself and do better. And they did, which was nice, because it wasn't really about them hurting my feelings. It was more they weren't doing so good. And then me and Davey just tried to write real mean stuff. And if you've met Davey Lane, I think you'll find he's the sweetest man in rock and roll.
Absolutely.
So there was like me. So there was like me as a teenager, and Davey, who is like never said a mean word about anybody, trying to be really mean and giggling through song. And it was really quite fun. And we just it was a really great opportunity for me to try and like be tougher than I really am, because I'm not very good at being tough or standing up for myself a lot of the time. And I think like it was actually like a good start for me to try and find a like tougher, that multitude within myself, that character that is a little bit tougher, because everyone has that person in them that can be a little stronger than they think they are. And maybe I had to learn to find that by maybe pretending for a little while first. And No Good was a good first baby step.
Well, that story then aligns with why you covered the Radiohead song Creep, because that in many ways is also self-deprecating.
Creep is, self-deprecating, and it's a real good expression of pain and grief and like not fitting in and feeling like you're just an outsider and you're this creep, this, you don't fit in this world, and you're not made for this place. And again, fits in with my sense of humor and for a while I'd do it, and every time I'd swear I'd say sorry, Mom, and I could make light of of my pain or what I was doing, and then after a while I could just do it and rip everyone's heart out, and it'd be fine, and do it and weep, and and it was sort of okay, and just feel everything, but it's just become part of what I do, and it feels very much a part of who I am and what I sing, and Creep has now become something that I feel like I could have written now. Like it's very much embedded in my soul now as well, even though I didn't write it.
The credits read like the who's who of Australian music over the last 30, 40
Yeah,
years.
except for it's like who's who and then who's that? Who's who, but who's that
Hey,
on
I
the
think you've got
front?
another album title there. For your third album, Who's Who and Who's That is the third album.
It's who's who, but who's that on the front?
That's funny. Every song on this record sounds like it should be played live. It's just 38 minutes. There's an entire set list just in there. I would imagine you'd have to beef it out a bit. So have you got more original songs that you would do live, or are there more covers that you would add to a live show?
I mean, I have a few that I would want to do, like a few covers I'd want to do live. There's a few originals I'd want to do live. Um, there's so much. There's so much I want to do.
And the final song on the album, Song to Bob, is a tribute to Bob Dylan, with lots of Dylan references in there.
If you listen to Song to Bob, just because he had Song to Woody on his first album.
Yep.
So I have Song to Bob on my first album as a tribute to Bob Dylan. But
You really
mine is
do
actually
contain multitudes.
I do contain multitudes. But mine's a little bit of a love song. So if you listen to the lyrics, there are actually lots of references to Bob Dylan songs.
You not only contain multitudes, you contain surprises.
I love Law and Order SVU, so
Great to talk to you, Elly-May.
have a good one. Thank you.